This segment I like to call Midnights of Our Past. Today we're going to revisit UFC 98, which was Rashad Evans defending his belt against Lyoto Machida. This was an amazing matchup at the time. Rashad Evans was coming off knocking out Forrest Griffin to win the belt. Lyoto Machida was coming off that knockout win over Thiago Silva. He had that win over Tito Ortiz before that. Lyoto Machida was on the rise. Everyone was like keeping an eye on him. They didn't know what was next for him, and they didn't know what to expect in this fight. And Machida came out and just dominated Rashad Evans. He did really well. His striking was on point, pinpoint accuracy. He had great timing, distance, and he just showed that he was like a new level of striking. If you going back and kind of watching these fights, you see that the level of the striking wasn't the same. It's gotten a lot better over the years. It wasn't the same back then, and Machida was kind of like taking it to a new level. Like when he burst on the scene, Rashad Evans was a good striker, but he wasn't anywhere near the striker of Machida. Machida showed that there was a new level, a higher level of striking, and he really brought it on. Joe Rogan at the end of the fight after he knocked out Rashad Evans like in spectacular fashion. Yeah, Joe Rogan was like, "Welcome to the Machida era." His title reign didn't last that long, but he definitely brought in a new era of striking. It opened up a lot of guys' eyes to thinking that it's not just this MMA style of striking and brawling. Like, he really showed that there's a lot more that people can learn about striking, timing, distance, footwork. His elusiveness was very unorthodox, and no one was really familiar with anything like that in MMA. So it got people thinking, and it brought a lot of attention to the striking game in MMA, and that was a hell of a performance by Machida. It was a great fight. If you haven't seen that knockout, go check it out. If it's been a while since you've seen it, go back and rewatch it. It was a spectacular knockout, an amazing fight. In the co-main event on that card was Matt Serra versus Matt Hughes. They had that bad blood. It was a big rivalry between both of them. They coached against each other on The Ultimate Fighter. And Matt Hughes came out and put on a dominant performance. He used his wrestling to just he just shut down Matt Serra's game. He used his wrestling really well to shut him down. Matt Serra couldn't really get anything going. He landed a couple strikes, but he couldn't get his rhythm going when they're on the feet, and he was just getting taken down and dominated. Matt Hughes has amazing submission defense. Matt Serra couldn't really even do much about going for submissions. Matt Hughes' top game was so dominant back then that it was hard for guys to deal with. That was a great performance by Matt Hughes on that fight. I know Matt Serra was disappointed because they had a lot of bad blood and trash talking before that fight. But yeah, that was a great matchup. Also on the main card, some of you might remember Drew McFedries. This guy had crazy knockout power. His hands, if he just touched you, you'd go to sleep. He took on Xavier Fopapakam. He knocked him out as expected. He had crazy knockout power. Xavier Fopapakam was Cyril Diabate's student. He was a stand-up fighter. He was a striker. So they went at it, and it didn't last long. Drew McFedries ended up KOing him. It was brutal power this guy had. If you've never seen Drew McFedries and you're new to the sport, go back and check out this guy's fights. This guy had insane power in his hands. He was like one of those rare breed, those fighters who could just knock out anybody. Also on the main card there was Chael Sonnen versus Dan Miller. Chael Sonnen dominated Dan Miller in this fight. He put on a really impressive performance. You really got to see how dominant of a wrestler Chael Sonnen is, and you got to see his ground and pound. You got to see him put in he puts in the work. And that was kind of what you're seeing, because Dan Miller at the time was 3-0 in the UFC. He was doing really well, and just Chael Sonnen just put a stop to that, and it was a good performance. You got to see Chael back then. That was him climbing the ranks at middleweight in the UFC after he did well in the WEC. And also on the card, it was Sean Shirk trying to work his way back up to getting a title shot after he lost to BJ Penn. He takes on Frankie Edgar. Frankie Edgar was young here. He was up and comer. A lot of people didn't know who he was at the time. He had some solid wins. And Sean Shirk, like I said, he was the former champ. He wanted to get back to it, and Frankie Edgar he was just lighting him up. Frankie Edgar looked amazing in that fight. His footwork, his angles, combinations. he was just landing. It was really the next generation fighter. Like we talked about with Machida, Frankie Edgar showed it on this card too. Like he was the next generation of striker. Like I said, with his angles, his boxing, combinations, footwork, Sean Sherk couldn't do anything about it. Frankie Edgar was so much faster. In his wrestling, he stuffed every Sean Sherk takedown. You know, he would tie him up. He would get the underhooks. He would grab a guillotine. He would sprawl. It was a great performance by Frankie Edgar, and this really let everyone in the lightweight division know that Frankie Edgar was for real, and he belonged at the top of the division. And he eventually went on and beat BJ Penn and became the champion. So this is a great fight that really highlighted Frankie Edgar and let people know that he was here to stay. And to this day, we see Frankie tearing it up. So this was another amazing fight that was on that card, UFC 98. So if you've never seen UFC 98, you're a new fan to the sport, definitely check it out. A lot of great fights, especially that main event with Machida making his Bellator debut this weekend. Go back and check out that knockout. It was an amazing performance by Machida. A great fight card. It was a lot of fun to watch. Go back and watch it if you've already seen it before. Thank you guys for tuning in. Subscribe to the channel, like the video, and we'll see you next time. Bye.